along with staff Russell, who you'll be aware, and Dave and Nick from the league. So welcome all. We will of course record everyone else who is here officially in the minutes. So Russell, if we could pop over to the first slide, thank you.
Brilliant.
Thank you, folks. Right, just a bit of housekeeping as promised. If you're not speaking, it'd be grateful if you could stay on mute, so we don't hear EastEnders or whatever's going on in the background in your particular abode this evening or club or wherever you might be. Um, if you have thoughts or questions as we go through the meeting, it's a relatively small group, so we'll be relatively informal and we'll address them as we go if they're relevant to whatever's being spoken about. So please pop them in the chat box, or I will pause at the end for Q&A. So if you're not too savvy with how Zoom works or whatever, hold your question and we will come back to you. We will give time at the end. Um, if you do speak or ask a question, we will ask you who you are, where you're from, just so we get some context as to any questions you might ask in your particular club or location within Wales. You don't have to have your camera on. The staff will keep theirs on, but you don't have to. But it would be useful if you do ask a question, if you pop your camera on. It's always nice to see a face behind the question. And as I mentioned, we will be recording the session. So that's the official or the stuff we need to tell you out of the way. In terms of the AGM itself, then, I've mentioned who's present. Russell, do we have any official apologies received?
None, Richard.
No, thank you very much. Just before we move to the minutes of the 2024 AGM, I will just say don't be surprised if this is a relatively swift agenda this evening. But what we are going to do at the end is, I mentioned we'll do some Q&As. We will also, after we've done the official business of the AGM, we will I'll give you a very brief tour of the latest Squash World strategy, which has just been released. It's hot off the press. If you're particularly eagle-eyed and you like your bedtime reading, it is on the Squash World's website now. But I will give you a bit of an update as to the sort of strategic direction that we're going as an organisation. But we'll do that officially after the AGM because it's not a formal part of the proceedings for this bit. So if you do like to hang around, please do at the end of the meeting. So, sorry, no apologies. So let's move swiftly to the minutes of the 2024 AGM. I think these were circulated, is that right, Russell? No, they were at the end of last year's meeting, certainly, and they are available on the website, so they are there. But I will go through the actions coming from them. Um, Item 4 was when we were talking about the previous meeting, there was a request for additional detail around the accounts. We put that in the minutes of last year's meeting, and we've used the same format this year. For this meeting, that will make more sense when we get to it in a minute. Essentially, it was just giving members a little bit more detail of the finances rather than the statutory account piece, which is quite difficult to interpret. It doesn't really tell you a lot. Similar point was made under item 5, which was to include more detail of the other, which we've done. We've split that out now to reflect that in this evening's presentation. There was a comment about any incorrect detail that was posted on social media. We didn't receive any, so therefore we've not made any changes. Breakdown of membership categories in the meeting, that was included within the minutes, and we did retain Arthur Gates as the accountant, and I believe that is it. So I'll just pause there for a second for anyone who wants to raise any questions about last year's minutes, both in terms of accuracy or otherwise. No? Okay. Hold your peace for ever more. Just quickly check there's no questions. I can't see any, so let's continue. On to the next item, which is minutes and matters arising. Sorry, done that. Presentation squash wheels again. Sorry, Russell. Sorry. I know I do what I'm doing. Right, finances. As it says on the second line there, you can see the full accounts with Companies House. They're a matter of public record. But what we have done for the purposes of members getting a better feel for how much money comes and goes, this gives you a snapshot of last year. Essentially, you see we slightly overspent, but as we were just discussing before the meeting and over the last 12 months, take that with a slight grain of salt because it's where the year end falls and where most of the international events happen over the Easter, May, March, April, May period. So it's not a significant amount of money that will level out over a period of years. Sometimes it's early, sometimes it's late. It just depends when Easter falls each year, and that's where most of our international teams go away. But you'll notice their income is predominantly support Wales grant funding, by far and away our most important source of funding. That is steadily reducing. We'll talk a little bit more about that in strategy, but no surprise, the pressure on all government departments and arm's length departments continues. But it is still very, very important to us. You'll notice that membership is not a particularly large contribution, but obviously running events and then general other things like retail sales pull in most of our other money. In terms of expenditure, salaries and staff, it's 47%. To give you a benchmark, that's relatively low for a governing body. You'd expect to probably see that around 60% in most Welsh governing bodies. So we're doing quite well there. The rest I won't go through line by line, but hopefully make some sense to you. Previously, the other and international program support, the two lines at the bottom were lumped together, so they were a little bit confusing. But international program performance is what it says on the tin. That is our national teams from under 13s upwards, travelling and doing all the things that they do with coaches and support staff, etc. And so that's why it's a fairly significant amount of money. I don't think there's anything there that otherwise isn't relatively self-explanatory, but I'll pause there for anyone who wishes to ask any questions on them. Oh, there's just something in the chat. Let me just see what it is. Okay. Right, nothing that we need to talk about. That's fine. Okay. Nothing from the floor. Nope. And okay, let's move on then, Russell. Thank you. That's relatively painless. And I'll hand over to Dave to talk about operations and performance.
Okay, thanks, Richard. Like I say, I won't go through line by line or anything. I'll just give you a couple of sort of headline pieces. As you can see, the membership is one of our areas we're continually trying to grow, get more members, whether it's social or sort of coach members, referees. And we're sort of slowly been growing it. We want to try and increase it a little bit quicker, but it's on the upward curve. We've moved over from the reward scheme, from feedback from the members to the Terry Berry platform, which went seamless and sort of still get some good rewards for the members. Our events went well last year. We made a profit on the events, which is really good. As you can see from the finance sheet, it's an area where we're trying to improve and get extra income from our events, but not at the expense of the way it's run. We still want to make sure they run professionally. We get referees in and sort of make sure the experience for the player is still of a high quality. The tournament participation has risen from the previous year, which is good. We obviously still want to try and increase that, but it is on the upward trajectory. And just recently, although it sort of just falls outside of this AGM, we've just run complete the first wheelchair squash tournament in Wales, which I know Alex Rowland's on the call, and he was part of that, and it was a really good successful event, which we can build on, which is fantastic. The leagues, obviously we've got Nick on the call for the leagues. Leagues run very well. We had another playoff final at the end, which was a success. We've got the league committee, which help with the rules and sort of all the little queries that come out of the leagues. On a different note, as you know, we've just put a consultation out about a new league restructure or a possible league restructure to try and sort of alleviate any issues with West and East Central, and that's another meeting at the end of November that we can give more information on that. The finance and grants, we've done very well with the clubs. Over 110,000 was given out on the energy grants to a numerous clubs, which is fantastic. We try to sort of promote it as much as possible to get as many clubs applying for these grants, because not every club meets the criteria, but obviously there's many as we can get on there to apply, the better, which is fantastic. Social media and digital. It's work in progress. We try to get as much out as we can. try to get as much sort of relevant content that the membership want to read and listen to. So what I would say is, if there is any content that we are missing or we're not delivering, please email into myself or Russ, so to give us any ideas, or if it's promote your club. We're more than willing to try and look at that to make sure all the content we do put out is relevant and what the members want. If you could move on now, Russ, onto the performance report. Again, pretty successful year in terms of performance from all our age groups, from under 11s up to the seniors. We've got quite a few senior players at the moment at their highest world ranking, with Joel making at number 4 and winning the World Series final, which is absolutely fantastic. And sort of moving on from strength to strength. All the representational teams that went away at least reached their seeded position or better. Which again, is fantastic for a country our size, competing against the what so-called bigger nations. We're doing really well. The player pathway, I know Greg's on the call, but we sort of targeted a little bit more last year, and this year moving forward a lot of the under 13, under 11 age categories, because we sort of found that we're not a little bit behind, but lack of numbers in those areas and those categories. So we're trying a big push to get more children into our pathways, to then move on throughout the squads. From when they're in the pathway, they've got obviously not just the top quality coaching. They have sort of S&C support from Sport Wales, along with certain players. Then we'll have player profiling that Greg and the coaches do on detailed areas on how they can improve in their pathway. So I won't. There's nothing else to go on the report. I won't go into each individual ranking and their tournament successes. But if there's any questions on either of the reports, obviously please feel free to put something in the chat or speak out now.
Thanks, Dave. We'll just pause there if anyone's got any questions they want to ask about any element of essentially the day-to-day business of Squash Wales. No, nothing forthcoming. So we shall motor right along. Just before we move to the motions, although you'll see there are no motions, but just for formality's sake, we do need to appoint the accountants for next year. Notice it accountants, not auditors. We are exempt from audit because of the size of the organisation under the FSC rules. So we are officially a small entity. Therefore, we have accountants that look at our accounts every year, and we submit those to Companies House. The board, and I, on behalf of the board, propose that we retain the services of Arthur Gate, who we've used for the last 3 or 4 years and have been very efficient, and were significantly cheaper than our previous accountants. So unless anyone has got any vehement objections, that's the proposal on the table, is to retain Arthur Gate. And I'm happy to take any objections from the floor or the members. If not, then the record will show that we will reappoint Arthur Gate as our accountants. Motions, none were received from members by the deadline for the AGM, so I'm afraid there's nothing exciting to vote on tonight. So that makes things relatively straightforward. So we'll move straight along, Russell, and to any other business. And is there anything from the floor that anybody would like to ask that is of competent nature for the AGM? No? Okay, I told you this would be quite swift. If there's nothing else and there's nothing in the chat, then okay, we shall move on. And the final order of business is the date of the next meeting. And that will be, oh, thank you there, it's the 5th of the 10th, 2026. That's the equivalent Monday next year. And so with that, we will close officially the AGM, but don't go anywhere for just a second. We will switch over